gals, and welcome back to my channel. If you guys are new here, hi, my name is Hillary, and if you are a returning subscriber, then you must be a crazy Hilly, and welcome back. If you guys like my content, feel free to give me a like or subscribe or leave a comment down below. It actually helps the channel out so much. My merch is finally here. So this is the sweater. I just got it, and I am so happy with it. I'm happy with the quality and how it looks. That's the front, and this is the back. It's got my name right there. And if you guys like it, I decided to do a 10% discount because, like, you know, in celebration that I have my first sweater. So the 10% discount, if you guys want to use it at checkout, you just use the code CZYHLY, which is Crazy Hilly, and then you should get a 10% discount of whatever you may or may not want to buy in the merch store. The only reason I'm not wearing it is because I accidentally ordered a small, because also, this promotion will only last for the next 2 weeks. So if you guys want that 10% discount, it's only going to be here for 2 weeks. Also, I have a Patreon down below. If you guys wanted to support the channel, that's the best way to do it. But don't ever feel obligated. It's just down there if you need it. All the links are in the description to the merch. Everything's down below. So let's get into what we are covering tonight. And what we are covering tonight is the mysterious case of the silent twins. June and Jennifer Gibbons were both born on April 11th, 1963. They were daughters of Caribbean immigrants. Their mother's name was Gloria and their father's name was Aubrey. And they immigrated from Barbados to the UK in around the 1960s. Their father worked for the US Air Force and their mother was just a stay-at-home mom. From birth, the twin girls were inseparable. Like, they were with each other 24/7, and they had a speech impediment that, when I was going through some documentaries, the sister said basically it was kind of hard for other people to understand them, so they kind of just quit talking to adults because they were tired of hearing them be like, what are you saying? And it developed into this weird thing where her and Jennifer and June, the siblings, only would talk to each other, and they would talk to each other in these weird sounds, nods, that nobody else could really understand except for them. Even though the twin sisters, they weren't their only siblings. They had an older brother whose name was David, and an older sister, as well as they had a younger sister that I'm going to get into in a little bit as well. But they did not talk to their older siblings and their parents either. It was very much a selective mutism kind of thing. Which is kind of cool, because, you know, if I had a twin, I would love to make up a language with them and just, like, only talk to them. A little weird, but twinning. Because the girls were they grew up in England, and it was, you know, they were born in the 1960s, so where they were living in England in the time, they went to school, and it was predominantly white people that lived there. And they were basically the only colored people in their entire school. And unfortunately, because of, I guess, their color or the fact that they didn't talk to anyone, they were very severely bullied by the people that they went to, the other children that they went to school with, which is not a great thing, because, like, if you bully, you're a jerk. But it got so bad to the point that the girls were traumatized, and their teachers would let them out early from school just so that they weren't picked on by the kids. So they'd get out 5 minutes early and kind of go home before all these other kids would come out and be like, why aren't you talking? Why aren't you this? Why aren't you that? At this point, their language became even more, like, unintelligible to anyone else. No one could understand them, and they would only speak to each other because of all the bullying. And even at one point, their teachers started to separate them from class. So they thought, maybe it'll get better if we separate them into different classes. But it didn't get better. It actually made it worse, and they still would only talk in this language to each other. And they would also kind of start, like, mimicking each other. Even though they were in different rooms, they were doing things that the other one was doing. Like, it's almost like they knew. Like, twin powers again. How do you know what your sister's doing when she's in another room? I don't know if it's intuition or what. Maybe magic? Who knows? At this point, the only other person that they talked to was their youngest sister, Rosie, because Rosie shared a room with them. So they would do all these plays, and they would only talk to Rosie, but this only lasted a certain amount of time, basically up until Rosie was 11. Once Rosie turned 11, she went into a different room, and she was actually kind of upset because her sister just stopped talking to her and just reclused further into themselves. Now, there was nobody else that they would speak to. The girls continued to go to this school, but basically they refused to read or write. And they were forced to go kind of to therapy to see what was going on. And then also were moved to like boarding school, but they tried to separate them as much as possible so that all this stuff with them only talking to each other and starting to mirror each other would stop. But it just made them catatonic and they stopped talking, and it made the situation a lot worse than it was. But even though these twins that were together all the time, that had this language and had this weird way of living life, and they were the only two people that they talked to, they started to resent one another. Like, they really, it kind of turned into a little bit of a competition, and they got it into their heads that they could not live while the other was alive. So there would be writings, because they were these poets and these, you know, they wrote a lot of things in their diary. And one would write how, you know, she was taller than the other, and the other one would write like, my sister needs to die. And they kind of just wrote these things about each other, and they started to, even though they loved each other, they started to resent one another. And they really figured that this problem that they were having was because the other. So one cannot live while the other lives, which is really, really odd behavior. There was also a point where they told each other this. So it wasn't like they weren't aware. They both wanted to kill each other. And they actually tried to drown one another in a creek or a ravine at one point. But they didn't, none of them drowned. But they both knew how the other felt about the other one. And again, their writing in their diaries were really odd. Like, it kind of mirrored this. There was a lot of things, like stories that they wrote that had to do with murder and other such things. And they're really good writers, but, oh, if you read some of it, it's a little creepy. It's a little creepy. From then on, they became teenagers, and then they kind of, like, lived this weird life where they started to steal, and they started to do all these things, and eventually they were convicted of arson. And they would they were running around the town just burning houses down, like burning buildings down or other such things. And they wrote in their diary that this made them happy, and they were so excited to see the buildings turn to ash and how they want to burn the whole town down. But eventually they did get caught, and they were sent to a mental institution. They were sent to Bodmore Hospital, which is this high maximum security mental institution. And again, they reclused into themselves. They only really talked to one another up until there was this reporter that kind of came into the picture who wanted to write a story about them. And they did actually talk to her, and they told her a lot of stuff. And they actually got 12 years in this mental institution, where if you're burning down houses and stuff, it's usually just 2 years in like a juvenile detention center. They were in this high security, maximum security psychiatric hospital where they were on a lot of medications, like antipsychotic medications and other such things, which I don't know, like, I'm thinking it made it worse. I don't think this was like the right thing to do to these kids, whether or not they were lashing out and that's why they were burning things down or what was going on. But I agree that it's weird that they have these twin powers, but I don't really think that they should be in a maximum security prison for that. But again, if the girls were separated, they would go into these weird catatonic states, and they would be in different rooms, and they would still be mirroring each other from the other rooms and kind of knowing what the other was doing and other such things. The girls actually told, I believe it was a doctor or a psychiatrist while they were there, that they wanted to murder each other, and one had premonitions and psychic abilities, and the other could tell what people were feeling and their emotions. So it was some weird stuff going on. Definitely something I'd want to get checked out. But anyway, after all that, and them being in that psychiatric hospital so long, they actually decided, hey, these girls aren't maximum security patients. And they were actually getting ready to move the girls in 1993 to a minimum security hospital. During their stay in the hospital, though, they had like, it became increasingly like, we cannot be normal unless one of us dies. One of us needs to die so the other one can live, because they always had this thing that one of them was the other's shadow. And so June was the older twin and Jennifer was the younger twin. Jennifer decided to make the sacrifice that she would die so that her sister would live on, because it was an ongoing conversation that they would have with each other that the other needed to die so the other could live. So on 1993, when they were getting shipped to go to the minimum security hospital, Jennifer laid down on June's lap and just fell asleep with her eyes open. And when they got there, she couldn't be roused. She had actually passed away on her way to the minimum security prison. Or sorry, not prison, hospital. On the way to the minimum security hospital. And when they had checked out everything that went on, she had died of natural causes. Her heart had swelled, and that's what killed her. June had revealed that Jennifer had been acting a little bit strangely in the previous days, and she was kind of slurring her words as if she knew that she was going to die. I don't know if that's a thing. I don't know if you're just gonna know that your heart's gonna, like, in your chest. But what June said, she was in a strange mood, and when this happened, she said, "I'm free at last, liberated. At last, Jennifer has given up her life for me." June, who is now 57, her sister Jennifer died at 29. She lives a relatively normal life. She's able to talk to other people. She doesn't just recluse and, like, only talk to herself or other such things. She actually is functional. After this, she moved into a house kind of close to her parents, and the odd things kind of stopped happening. What do you guys think? Do you think that, you twins have this power that they can recognize what's going on in each other? I feel like this is a very extreme case, because I don't know if this happens with I would assume if this happened with every twin, we'd be, like, researching this stuff, right? But to this day, June still thinks that going to Bodmore kind of ruined their lives, and it's not a good thing. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think that they had this power? Like, how can someone's heart just swell? Did Jennifer already know that she was going to die? Or was this some weird preordained twin thing that they knew that the shadow had to die so that the other could live? Let me know down below what you guys think of the silent twins and this case. Feel free to give a like or subscribe. If you guys want to see the equipment I use, down below I have a bunch of the links of the things that I use if you want to check that out. But thank you guys for watching. See you next time. Bye.